Hello and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that has caught our eye this week. I'm James and with me is Chesto.
Hello everyone.
Who's been looking at electronic innovations. And Tom, who's been thinking about Hilux and the hordes of new competitors looking to knock it off the top of the Ute pyramid. And we'll update you on the man who thinks nuking Mars might be a good idea in this week's MuskWatch. So stay with us. But first of all, we've had some feedback and there's a theme here. There's a definite theme. Hammer Rocks has fed back yet again. Thank you very much. And it's about Maddie's chat last week about the Tesla Model 3 and some shortcomings. And Matt's week has been dominated by feedback around reviews that he's written for the Model 3 variants, and you can find those on our website. But Hammer Rock says, substandard fit and finish on a Tesla, surprise, surprise, capital letters, not, exclamation point. So, okay, we see which side of the fence Hammer's on. He suspects most new owners will be blinded by the tech and the fact that they can say they own a Tesla and will simply just put up with it. And that seems an interesting and reasonable point of view. Just like my uncle, who can't wait to get his Model 3 that he's had on order since 2016. And no Tesla bad press will make him cancel his order. But if Subaru, Honda, Mazda, etc. can build great quality sub-30k cars, surely Tesla can make a better effort on a 60 to 90k plus car.
I mean, placing an order in that early, he would have been part of that crew that would genuinely not have known whether it was coming or not.
Probably, yes.
Was my uncle his screen name, or was it your uncle?
No. It's Hammer Rocks' uncle.
I'm sorry.
Hammer Rocks' uncle.
Right.
Yeah, sadly my uncles are no longer with us.
Okay,
but,
right, fair enough.
They're probably smiling down.
Fair enough.
Now, Roto Ihu, who has been a commenter over time from time to time, says, actually, holy hell, Matt, your Tesla reviews have brought out the Tesla disciples. No criticism, no matter how justified of a Tesla, is allowed, apparently.
That's right.
Perhaps you'll need to work on your Aussie accent, though. Half the commenters seem confused by the pricing as they think it's an American review.
That's right.
Okay, so that's fair call. Maybe we should do a bit more in that regard. He says to Crafty, I think the idea of you being a spokesperson for Keep Australia Beautiful is a smart idea. You strike me as being 51% laid-back Aussie bloke and 49% you don't want to see me when I'm angry. I'd certainly err on the side of doing as I'm told, smiley face.
Right. I want to keep Crafty beautiful.
I'm not grumpy per se, just to test the, quote, bovine stench, unquote, that emanates from marketing PR departments of most car makers. So, okay. He's got a particular point of view. Now, Grudland74, again, we're returning to the Tesla theme. With Tesla, if a car is delivered with panel space issues, they will fix it. Every car delivered does not have this issue. I like how he, and that's Matt, said the acceleration is a party trick. Now, I don't think that was meant in a derogatory sense. I think that was meant in it's a wow and it will really knock people's socks off.
Absolutely.
Type party trick. It wasn't trying to knock it down at all.
And credit where credit's due on that. Matt did point out that the standard range one, so the lesser Tesla we had, was much better built than the performance that we got.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, there's that. That's true. Ice-powered cars dream of that kind of performance, pollute the environment, and cost more to run. The M3, as in Model 3, can get 115 mile per gallon. Guess that is not important to mention. But look, I think a lot of Matt's stories were around range and how the cars performed in that regard. But anyway, Grudland74, thank you very much.
Can I just raise a quick point on that?
Yep.
The amazing thing about the Tesla panel gap issue is that these are press cars. These are cars that the company is going to send out to journalists.
Possibly keep a sharp eye on.
Across the country for review.
Yeah.
If not all cars arrive with panel gap issues, can't they choose ones that don't have panel gap?
Yeah.
To send down?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Seems weird.
You think so?
Ryan, R-Y-E space A-N, says, if you're not sure if the Tesla Model 3 is anything special, look up Sandy Munro /Tesla, and I think that means on YouTube. As a production engineering consultant who's never taken a Tesla dollar, it's enlightening to say the least. Now, it is actually, because Sandy Munro, his business is one of those that takes cars apart, assesses its build, assesses the cost of each of the components, and makes a judgment on how much it's cost to produce the car. And he initially was very negative towards the Model 3. And he did call out that the electronics and all of the hard stuff in the centre of the car was amazing, but he had concerns. He has changed his tune over time.
Yep.
And if you do follow that, it makes an interesting kind of commentary and an interesting point of view.
I actually listened to a podcast, I'm sure it was Sandy, but apologies if it wasn't, where he came on the Autoline After Hours podcast and said exactly this. Oh, look, I don't know where the money goes. It's not built to professional standards, etc., etc. And he actually came back back a week or two later
Yeah.
and said, actually, after further investigation, we realised that, as you say, the technology is through the roof. It's
Yes.
space-grade stuff.
Yeah.
So it does have a lot of benefits for us.
So that's good. So if people are that way inclined, they should check it out
Yeah, it's very
and help inform
Yeah.
their position on the whole thing. Now, we are going to move on to your good self, Chesto.
Great.
And we're talking about EVs.
Yes. So speaking of Tesla and electric cars, have you noticed that whenever a new EV company starts, by the way, they're always described as the Tesla killer? Tesla
Yeah,
killer,
sure,
Tesla
sure,
killer.
sure.
We know now that nothing yet has arrived to kill Tesla, but
No.
people are trying. So first, let me talk about the size of the prize. This is coming from the Bloomberg Electric Vehicle Outlook.
Okay, great.
A few thousand EVs sold around in 2010. In 2018, there were 2 million electric vehicles sold around the world.
Yep.
They expect that number to climb to 10 million by 2025 and then to 56 million by 2040.
So obviously these things just procreate like rabbits.
Exactly.
It's an exponential thing.
So basically all analysts are saying that we're heading towards an EV future.
Yep.
There's no escaping it.
Yep.
So the prize there is massive
Yes.
for car makers.
Yes.
And hence the reason so many people are competing. So I thought I'd just pull out a couple of people that I thought were doing interesting things around the world. The first one, of course, you've heard me talk about them before, Rivian. Rivian's a US company that has had a huge amount of funding initially from companies like Amazon, but then more recently from Ford,
Yep.
who are sharing platforms and technology with them for their own EV, SUV
Yep.
and truck range. Their two flagship products are the R1T and the R1S. S for SUV, T for truck. And they are stunning to look at,
Yeah.
really stunning to look at, but also the specs are incredible. Quad motors, 147 kilowatts to each wheel, 14,000 Newton meters in total torque, $69,000 US price tag for a truck that will clip 100 kilometers an hour. In
I'm
3
sure we're
seconds.
talking 1,400 Newton meters.
14,000, it says.
That's got to be a typo. There's an extra zero on there.
There's an awkward
I'll have a
silence
look.
there.
I'm having a look.
All right.
So
That's a hell of a lot of talk.
I know, but whether it's usable, we'll find
Right,
out.
gotcha.
So then, so moving on from there, so those guys are doing great things and are really heading to the top of the class. So they're
Yep.
expected to have trucks on the road, I think, towards the end of this year or early next year, and they are going to be coming to Australia confirmed, both
Now,
R1T and R1S.
Do you know what part of the States is Rivian based in? Do you know? Are they in like Detroit homeland?
No,
or
they're
in
not. No,
California?
No. I do know. I'll find. I've written so much about Rivian now; it's ridiculous. So I will.
Anyway, it's
either
just
come back to
interesting.
me or I'll find it for you.
know, Tesla being so much centered in Silicon Valley
correct.
and the West Coast and all that kind of stuff. Be interesting to know if that's a little more diverse from a geographic point of
Yeah,
view.
correct.
And it's interesting to see that, that's reflected in sort of Tesla's ethos: is the tech comes first, the car kind of comes second.
maybe.
You know,
Yeah, maybe.
Now, number two, and this is one that we're also a bit excited about, is the company Byton, Byton. These guys have been kicking around for a little while now. They're the ones that famously released that car where the entire dash, basically left to right, was replaced by a gigantic screen. So it takes Tesla's big portrait screen and just pumps it up to 11, basically.
Yep.
Stretches wing mirror to wing mirror effectively. So that is like this super tech focused car. In fact, his idea, and this is coming from one of their presidents, says what we're trying to offer here is not just another electric car model, but a smart device. So far, most models designed by Chinese electric startups are closer to Tesla's solution in terms of a concrete central control touchscreen. But we have leapt further, taking into account a full electric self-driving era. So the idea, of course, is that eventually no steering wheel, no nothing, just a huge digital
Well,
screen for you
maybe,
to do whatever you need.
when they are fully level 5 autonomous, the screen just steps up to where the windscreen is and wraps right around the
Yeah,
whole
that's
car.
right.
And you can be in the Bahamas on your way to work.
Absolutely.
When
you start comparing virtual reality with driverless cars,
Precisely.
anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
So those guys, again, they're one to be taken seriously. They're founded by former BMW and Nissan execs. They've already had 40,000 reservations on the first production model. Half of those customers are from the USA and Europe.
40,000 reservations.
Okay.
wow.
Now, the last one, and this one is also very interesting and is referred to as the Tesla of China.
All right.
They're a company called NIO, N-I-O. They were started in 2014. And their concept is not so much around electric cars, but around how you use them. So what is the biggest drawback with EVs that stands to this date?
Well,
Yes.
obviously, it's the charge time, right?
Charge time, exactly. So what NIO does is rather than sell you a car with batteries, they sell you a car and then they rent you the batteries. So it lowers the cost of the vehicle. So their 7-seat SUV, for example, is around $45,000 US, which is pretty reasonable price for a big 7-seater. But the batteries aren't yours. You lease them at about US $200 a month or US $50 a week.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Which sounds exy, but hear me out. what then happens is you never ever have to recharge those batteries. They have built these they've already built, I believe, 8 of them, running a network between Beijing and Shanghai, which is about 1,100 Ks. These little battery swap stations, which is the size of 3 traditional car spots.
Yes.
You pull in, swaps the batteries, and you're on the road again with swaps the dead ones out, fully charged ones in, on the road in 3
So
minutes.
right, by the sound of it, then no specific cost for that process.
No, that's
you've
free.
paid up
Correct.
front, so you just
more
go,
like
you go crazy on the battery
Correct.
swaps.
More like a subscription. I've heard of this whole battery swapping thing.
A few people have tried it in the past.
Yeah, but they're also trialing it. Like even the big Euro automakers they've come up against this issue of if we make trucks electric, we can't stop trucks for 6 hours to charge them. So they're talking about doing swappable battery cassettes.
Yeah, our kids use it with the Xbox controller. You just take the batteries out and then you can just put more batteries in. It's amazing.
Yeah, very much.
You're up and running within seconds.
Yeah.
Now, on that car, this is the last thing I'll say about that car for a moment. So the technology is clever. These guys are try to be revolutionary. They had these mobile charge vans that would drive around to and recharge people's cars on the road kind of thing.
Wow.
And like these sort of rolling power banks, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this car, as I said, it's at US $45,000 starting price, but of course you don't own the batteries. And it's pretty good. It's 0 to 100 in 4.4 seconds, 425 kilometers in range, 84 kilowatt hour battery pack. So it's it ticks all the EV boxes.
Yes.
And you never 3-minute swaps.
Yes, I suppose there are various elements of complexity there in that the battery that you hand in, whether you get a good one, the degradation of them over time, but the responsibility for that, I'm sure, resides with the manufacturer.
But think about
and all of that.
Beauty of it is you only ever have the batteries for as long as it takes them to go flat.
Yes, exactly.
So if you get a bad one, you're getting a
Go
better
and get
one
another
a week
one
later potentially.
Yeah, too true.
I read an interesting article on that propagation of EVs in China. Actually,
I hope I wrote it. Did I write it?
No. So this one comes from a place called CarNewsChina.com that they sort of do English kind of releases on all the new latest stuff out of China. They wrote this thing saying that so China's in trouble at the moment because they've had a big downturn in their car market.
They have, in fact, had 13 consecutive months of reducing car sales.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, and a lot of these electric startups are in trouble now as well because they've pitched these ridiculous sales targets. They've said NIO, one of the bigger ones, have said, okay, so what they plan to sell in 2019 was 50,000 units of EV alone, and they've only sold 7,481 units.
I see.
And that's reflected across the board. There are some that are closer than the others. Some have made completely outrageous claims, like they were going to sell 100,000 and they've only sold 8,000 or something. But
so the question is, should NIO have taken the red pill or the blue pill?
Well, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did read just this morning that they've just laid off 1,200 staff. So things aren't going swimmingly well for NIO, but it does leave them with about 7,500. So it's still a sizable company.
And think about the fact that Tesla's just in the midst of, Gigafactory 3 in Shanghai
to
produce Model 3s. Not great timing.
Now, if I can stop you for just one moment before we move on.
Yep.
Rivian R1T, 3,500 newton meters of grounded torque per wheel.
Per wheel.
14,000 newton meters of torque for the full vehicle.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a sizable number.
Does the Earth have that much torque?
It will spin the Earth on its axis.
Now, speaking of torque, Tom, time for you to get talking.
Yeah.
On commercial vehicles, largely, let's stick with the theme, the China thing. Fill us in. What have you been looking at?
Right, so there's been a lot of talk lately, and Chesto's written some stories on this kind of upcoming challenger, Great Wall. You might recognise as one of, the, I guess, more successful Chinese automakers to actually come to Australia. You can actually see a few of their cars driving around, which is, different. But so they've been talking a lot lately about their next generation ute coming out.
Yeah.
And finally, it's been unveiled in China. On the 18th, they did this big unveiling, and there's a lot to it. So it's not just a new ute, it's a new design language, it's a new ethos behind the brand. And I think it's for the first time we're kind of seeing these like Chinese automakers selling cars in the West and doing what Hyundai has done decades ago.
It's funny you mentioned that, Tom. I'll just cut away to a parallel. You notice in traffic, in the cities anyway, Hyundai with its iLoad had undercut Hi-Ace, and all of a sudden you just saw Hyundai iLoads everywhere. Now you see LDVs that are doing that to Hyundai, repositioning the market yet again. They're just everywhere. But sorry, continue.
Yeah. So basically, this is the next generation Steed. It's been confirmed. I reached out to Great Wall's local operation to say, hey, look, this thing's been unveiled. It's this big unveiling. Is this the next Steed? Is this what we'll be seeing?
Yeah.
And yes, it is. So it runs on Great Wall's new P71 chassis, which also underpins the Haval H9. If you've seen that,
Sounds like a World War II fighter plane.
Yeah, it does a little bit. It's a dual cab only, luxury interior, so it's got the leather plate, everything, and it's got a big 9-inch multimedia touchscreen. It's got all the safety stuff you could possibly expect.
Yeah.
So
It's got leather through the doors.
Quilted
It's
leather
the thing, isn't it? Leather in a lot of Chinese cars, it's just there.
Yeah.
It's so embedded in Western car buyers' brains as being a premium
You have to
thing.
tick that option.
Yeah.
And just, let's put leather in it. It's as good as any other covering.
Now, we should point out, though, the interesting thing about this is in China, it's pitched as a luxury ute. So it's specifically luxury. So it's specifically for a higher-end buyer in China.
So that means it's only registered to carry diamonds, expensive wristwatches,
Correct.
Well, it
But
looks
a ton of them.
luxury brand goods.
It looks very much like that. It's very kind of Givenchy,
Yeah, right.
Luxury ute. There's two sentences.
Yeah.
Two words.
Luxury ute.
Yeah. But for a Western consumer, it looks more like kind of your higher end dual cab, right?
Okay.
With all those kinds of features. It's impressive that it has all of that active safety stuff and all that multimedia stuff, because even some of the more reputable brands here are only just starting to get that now. So the fact that this has it cooked in, I think, is pretty
Are
impressive.
they doing everything themselves? It's their own engine, or is it someone else's engine?
As far as I know, it's their own engine. And the only thing we know so far, because it's a Chinese release, is that it's going to have an all-new 2-litre turbo petrol engine.
Righto.
Now, Great Wall's local operation did confirm that there is a new diesel coming, but we don't know anything about it yet, other than it will be mated to a ZF 8-speed torque converter auto.
Yep.
That's all we know about it. It will be 4x4 only. There will be no 4x2 version. It is aiming for a 1-ton payload capacity and at least a 3-ton brake towing capacity.
And it's also aiming specifically at a couple of vehicles here, isn't it?
It is. So, and the local operation also confirmed this. They've benchmarked this truck for its off-road ability, for its towing ability, for its power figures, all of that stuff. They've benchmarked the Toyota Hilux specifically, and they've also benchmarked Toyota in terms of their branding position.
Is that a 2019 Hilux?
Well,
or maybe a 2000.
And benchmarking is one of those ones. We benchmarked against the Hilux. How did it go?
Yeah.
Not well.
No.
that's right.
But we benchmarked it.
Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, look, there is a lot that's yet to be seen. But I think they're trying to tick all the right boxes, and I think it's one of the first times we've seen Chinese automakers genuinely try and say, okay, we can't just make a Chinese car for the world. It has to be a world car that is also sold in China.
Well, you know what the interesting thing about the Australian car market is? No one ever makes cars for us because we're too small.
Yeah.
Sure.
But utes are a different kettle of fish. So I know that truck, for example, is going to be, well, the suspension won't be specifically tuned here. They say it'll be tuned for Australia. You've got the LDV T60 Trail Rider. Is it? I think that's has a bespoke suspension tune here in Australia. So people are sort of eyeing our booming ute market as an opportunity.
I have an unfortunate association with Trail Rider. When I was a kid, everyone wanted the Levi's jeans, but the local, like the ones you got at the local store, were Trail Riders. And if you were on the outer,
kind of like
you had
the
your Trail Riders.
off-brand lows, kind of. Yeah,
Mum.
Yeah.
Side topic on that, I actually think it looks really good. I don't think it's overly styled. I don't think it's over the top. I think it's a nice looking truck.
I think you could probably the closest thing to it, I think, is the Nissan Navara right now. And it's kind of got this kind of wide front that looks a little bit more like a US truck.
And I know they haven't talked pricing yet, but the Australian spokesperson said when we bring this truck to Australia, people are going to look at it and wonder why are we paying so much for a Hilux.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So they're obviously going to target the undercut and see how it goes.
The only notion I can give you on that for the time being is apparently it costs the equivalent. So the entry level will cost the equivalent of $18,500 US in China. So I mean that's not a very good indication, but it just gives you an idea.
How that plays out.
Yeah.
Interesting though, because I wonder how it'll actually do. There are so many utes here in Australia already, and vast majority of people just buy a Hilux or a Ranger, don't they?
Sure.
But if you can bring it in cheaply enough, which is the LDV strategy, you do see a lot of those.
It also depends on whether you're talking about private buyers versus business buyers,
Yep.
because a business buyer is all about durability, running costs,
Yep.
and fuel economy, that kind of stuff,
Yep.
the badge becomes less important.
It's irrelevant,
and
yeah.
they're more open
Yeah.
to an option that is going to deliver on those fronts.
Absolutely.
So,
It'll be
yeah, it
interesting.
just depends.
Interesting to see how it goes.
And just a little B-side on that topic of automakers looking at Australia for their ute, just their general ute strategy.
Yeah.
We did a story yesterday also on the fact that the Amarok V6 is getting a 6-speed manual transmission.
Great.
We're the only market that gets that.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and they said that Australia is the biggest export market for V6 Amarok.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
that's when you start to have a voice at the factory.
Yeah,
When-
that's
when
right,
you're
yeah.
delivering numbers that makes their ears prick up, and yeah.
Little
Okay.
old Australia. Hey, how good. How
There you
good
go.
for us.
Yeah, well, when you said, Australia's small, I think we're all well above or close to average height. We're not that small at all.
Speak for yourself, Jason.
All right, now we're going to move on to our very own garage.
Yes.
And the cars that we've been driving during this week. And Chesto, funnily enough, you're saying goodbye to one.
I am,
that
today, in
you've-
fact.
That you've been driving. Today's the day.
Today
where-
is the
where you
actual
part
day.
company.
So not long after we wrap this, I'll be dropping that back and
Yep.
waving goodbye to my Holden Equinox LT, which I've had in the garage, the non-existent garage, for the past 6 months.
Yep.
Probably the most alarming thing about my time with that car is that I've enjoyed it. Don't get
Yes.
me wrong, but
Yep.
when we took delivery of it, Holden had made no secret of the fact that they feel like their SUV range is just invisible in Australia. People
Yes.
don't think of Holden as an SUV brand yet.
Sure.
They're trying desperately to change it.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I sort of kept an eye out for them. Over the last 6 months, I've seen 3 Equinox.
Wow.
3, and I was looking for them.
And we
one
do
of them was
this.
mine.
We do this podcast in Sydney.
Yeah.
Which is many millions of people.
Yeah.
It's a decent sized city.
That's right.
So over that period of time, to only have seen 3 others.
No,
Or you're counting
two,
your own.
2 others. One of them's mine. I'm trying to do them.
Yeah.
fast.
Wow.
And it's funny because normally you get a new car every week and you think, I haven't seen many of these. But then as you're driving it, you see other people in them.
Sure.
And
And you become
it's one of
aware
those
of it.
weird
Yeah,
mental
correct.
tricks,
Yeah.
I think. But
Yeah.
not for the Equinox,
But,
apparently.
and yet the strange thing about that is that it's not that kind of car. Like, it's not a vehicle that you think, I won't see any of these. It's don't get me wrong, it's not. As I wrote in a piece recently, there's nothing. If you're at a barbecue, there's nothing about that car necessarily that you're going to go, oh my god, did you know that it does this
Right.
or does this or
Yes.
does that? But taken as a package, it's a really competent. really
Competent.
comfortable, really practical vehicle, and I personally don't think it's too hard on the
The
eyes
thing
either.
is, though, competent feels like damning with
No,
faint
I know,
praise,
I
doesn't
know,
it?
I
You
know.
Oh, it's very competent. It's like, oh yeah, he has a lovely personality.
Yeah, that's right.
It's that kind of thing.
He's got a nice pair of trail riders.
yeah, well.
Yeah.
But
Don't
I
go
guess the point is this: competent is about all the praise you can heap on an SUV. To be fair, because as long as it carries a lot of stuff, carries people,
Yes.
and does it in some sort of relative comfort,
Yes.
it's kind of ticking
That's
the SUV
it.
boxes.
Job's
right?
done. Yes, good point.
The other thing I'll call out about it is its little engine. It's got a surprisingly punchy little 2-litre turbocharged engine. So when pre-delivery, I sort of thought, oh god, a little 2-litre engine in this thing, it's going to be
gonna be
drag
thrashy.
itself
Yeah.
around. It's pretty punchy. There's 188 kilowatts and 353 newton
Wow,
meters.
that's not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
So when you do get a little bit, shall we say, enthusiastic with it, it's quite funny. Wheels are chirping.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
quite,
right.
It's quite a fun little thing to kick around.
I think that's part of a broader readjustment of mindset that
Yeah.
says, smaller engine doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah,
less
that's
in
right.
terms of
Yeah,
the way it
that's right.
delivers on performance and other things.
As Ranger tells us again and again.
Completely.
So I'll summarise it just by simply saying this. It is, as I say, it's competent, and I know that sounds like damning it with faint praise, but it is confident, comfortable. The boot space is terrific,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
genuinely terrific.
Yep.
It does have a few quirks. It's not the most dynamically perfect vehicle that I've ever been involved in. It does have the touchscreen interface is woeful, but of
Right.
course it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so
Okay.
you just plug in and forget about it.
Yep.
It's very well equipped from a standard safety viewpoint, blind spot monitoring, rear view camera, parking sensors, rear cross traffic alert, AEB, lane departure warning, lane keep assist, 6 airbags. Like it ticks all those boxes, right? There's dual zone climate control, heated front seats, 18-inch alloys, all for around the 36K mark. So it doesn't, I feel like I've formed a bond with this thing when I say this.
And
but
your uncle has a Holden dealership.
yeah, correct.
Obviously.
I'm not saying that it's the best in its field, but I feel like I should have seen more than
Okay.
3 of them, including my own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, well, that's a good wrap up. And Tom, moving to yourself,
Yeah.
you've been experiencing the same engine in different ways.
Yes, so I've sort of driven these 2 cars almost back to back. They're
All
separated
right.
by about a week. And
Okay.
one of them was the Citroen C5 Aircross, and the other one is the new Peugeot 308 GT.
Yes.
And so they have kind of, it's a 1.6 litre engine in different stages states of tune. The Peugeot one's interesting for other reasons, but the C5 has it 121 kilowatts, 240 newton meters, and the 308 has it with 160. I don't know. I can't find it here. There it is. 165 kilowatts
165.
and 285 newton meters.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
Look. I'll touch on the C5 quickly first because it's I find this car unexpected. It's really comfortable. They've had this sort of attitude of developing it from not the standpoint of, we're going to make it sporty and we're going to make it nice to drive and all the rest of it. They've sort of approached it from, well, hang on a minute. People driving around in an SUV as like a family thing, we should make it comfortable. So they've put memory foam in the seats.
Mattress
They've sort of
seats, yeah,
It's amazing. I don't know why more automakers don't do this. Seriously,
they are the best seats.
Yeah, you sit on these seats, and then it's like you're not sitting on anything. It's like you're kind
Brilliant.
of floating in this passenger compartment,
Great.
and it's plenty fine to drive. It's not very powerful. It feels a bit sluggish, and you sort of wait on a bit of turbo lag and all the rest. But
Not
I
a
find
sports car.
it's not the point of the car at all.
Yep.
And I love how they've done this. They've gone about approaching the SUV development formula from a totally different mindset, and I think more people should do it. And it's wildly practical, and it has all those safety boxes ticked.
Cool.
It is 40 grand, so it's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
And so is the 308 actually. 308 is also 40 grand, which is not cheap. So
Right.
What's that? The 308 GT? Is it
The GT,
Do they still are they doing lesser models again, or is it just going to be a one model family?
No, they've got a GTI above it as well, for the time being, and I want to say they have an Allure below.
Okay.
All right.
I was going to say 40k is a big jump into it.
It is, yeah. And the other thing about it is you can have a Golf Highline with all the bells and whistles for the same price, if not
Great point.
slightly
Yeah,
cheaper.
great point.
I actually had a chance to test a Highline Golf back to back, and the kind of difference in ethos was very interesting.
Yeah.
I found that the Peugeot was so focused on being sporty, and it felt very much that way. You sit in the cabin, and you're sitting really low, and the wheel's really low, and it's small, and it handles like this. And sport mode genuinely does something like.
Well, I suppose with both Citroen and Peugeot, I mean, we'd like to think that we get the message out there about various new products, but in the broader sense, they're pretty much invisible. The brands aren't exactly promoted heavily.
Citroen
in this market.
especially.
Yeah, and it is interesting to pitch it against Volkswagen because, like, PSA as a group, which is Peugeot and Citroen, have been playing this catch-up game against other automakers who have been doing like this platform sharing deal and making these profitable ranges and only making use of 1, 2, or 3 engines.
Exactly.
But now they've trimmed their engine lineup down from like 13 to 1 almost, and their
That's
cars.
fair old trim.
Yeah, and
That's
their
a
cars,
short back and sides.
Yeah, and their cars are feeling very consistent in the way they handle and feel, and their multimedia is really good and the safety is really good. So I just think they're one to watch.
All right, Tom, we have got to move on. Thank you very much for that. I will quickly give you a thumbnail on the Kia Picanto X-Line, which is a really cute little car that has subtle overtones of SUV off-roadiness, like
cute.
some little black plastic over fenders on the wheel arches and stuff like that. I think it's a beautiful-looking little car, and little being the operative word, it is tiny. It's very much a city kind of car. $16,190 plus on roads for a five-speed manual, and it's a 1.2 litre 4, so you're only looking at 62 kilowatts. It is not a powerhouse, far from it. But you're rowing through those gears to get around. 16-inch alloys, AEB, a reversing camera, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, auto LED headlights. All of that stuff for $16,190, and there's more.
And a 7-year warranty.
And a 7-year warranty. So it's a bit gutless, but the gearbox is really nice. You get to use it a lot. And I really enjoyed driving it in the city environment.
Jesse, last time we spoke, you just climbed out of a Panamera. And now you're in
there
a
we
Kia
go.
Picanto.
So that's just to prove things can change. And speaking of change, it's time for MuskWatch. Righto, let's kick it off. Okay, a bit to get through.
He's had a big
Let's
week.
kick it off. He has had a big week. First of all, he has wanted to nuke Mars for some time. So last weekend, the Dear Leader dropped news of a Nuke Mars T-shirt being available. It's coming soon. And that's doubling down on a theory that he first floated in 2015, okay? So this is firing nuclear weapons at Mars' poles with the aim of terraforming it, making it the surface habitable for humans.
Oh, yeah, because nukes are good like that.
The goal would be to vaporise the water that's trapped in the ice at Mars' poles, releasing CO2 into the atmosphere to engineer a greenhouse effect.
This is the worst idea ever.
Musk hopes this will help with long-held ambition of colonising Mars.
Okay.
Right? So the science of making Mars, nuking Mars, isn't watertight.
Neither are his cars.
In 2018, two researchers from the University of Colorado and Northern Arizona explored the possibility of using CO2 to terraform Mars and concluded it wouldn't be possible with today's technology. And on Tuesday, Elon backtracked somewhat to a position that satellites equipped with solar reflectors could be preferable to dropping nuclear weapons. And that is full-on proper Bond villain stuff. When you've got satellites with solar reflectors heating Mars up to terraform.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We literally had a Bond film about this.
Exactly. Moonraker.
Yeah.
Something like Moonraker.
Moonraker was one, and then you had Die Another Day.
There you go.
That was the one with the big solar reflector.
Sitting in a big chair stroking a cat.
Hairless cat.
Today we will nuke Mars.
This
Yeah.
is What's going on? Now, speaking of solar, Tesla solar, last Sunday, Elon tweeted, Tesla Solar just relaunched. Let me know what you think, with a link to the Tesla Solar website. Okay? So the spiel sounds like something off a late-night, terrible TV commercial. With a new lower Tesla pricing, it's like having a money printer on your roof. If you live in a state with high electricity costs, still better to buy, but the rental option makes the economics obvious. And he followed another tweet. One click to order solar and save. $500 a year in utility bills with no long-term contract. Cancel anytime.
And you do
this is a tweet from Elon Musk.
Do you still get steak knives, or is that?
But then Heike Antilla responded by saying he didn't actually agree. Look, you could go through all the sums, and I don't know where Heike's from, whether he's in America or some other country altogether. But his calculations pointed to 15 years to break even, and that's based on zero maintenance or upkeep. So it's not exactly a money printer, on your roof.
No.
But then you started to notice an angry comment or two mentioning Walmart. And we went, okay, what's all that about? And that was some more recent commenters, because while we know Tesla is on fire, on Tuesday, America's biggest retailer filed suit over a spate of actual fires it says are related to the company's solar panel installations. All right, so US shopping giant Walmart filed a suit against Tesla in New York after the roof space above more than 240 of its stores was used for solar panel installations from the carmaker's energy unit. Walmart says that as of November last year, fires had broken out at 7 of its stores, forcing the retailer to disconnect all of the installations as a safety precaution. More about faulty installation than the actual panels themselves, and Tesla is yet to officially respond. But that said, Walmart claims many of the Tesla solar panels inspected by Walmart were suffering from hotspots, resulting in cracking of the back sheets on solar modules and compromising electrical insulation. So hotspots decrease efficiency and they accelerate the degradation of the cell. So these things hadn't been up for all that long.
I feel like we hear a lot about Tesla products lighting on fire.
Absolutely. And, well, that's right. That parallel has been drawn, rest assured, in a lot of these comments. But you look at some of the feedback from people in the thread, and it just starts to get brutal. Walmart's deposition to the court in New York alleges widespread systematic negligence. That's a quote from this deposition. Tesla inspection reports, quote, overstate Tesla's efforts to repair system defects, misrepresent remediation efforts, and are unreliable indicators of site safety. Tesla is incapable of maintaining solar systems in a safe condition and consistent with the standard of care. Coke Comedy tweeted a meme to Elon asking him to please review this meme to celebrate getting sued by Walmart. Elon. And the meme has 2 buttons, big red buttons. One says, tell Walmart to F off, and the other button says, let the fires burn. And look, Solar City, the company that Tesla has a big ownership stake in, that is looking after the installation, it's a bit of a basket case. It's heading down the gurgler. So all of that is looking quite ugly.
It is.
Now, that's one side of the story. That's a heavily Walmart-weighted take on the story. So we'll wait to see what Tesla says in response.
On that for one sec, though, if you're bored and you want to read that
Deposition?
the deposition, it is staggeringly brutal. Like
Yeah.
Walmart pull no punches in
at
exactly
all.
what's
Because,
happened there.
I mean, I'm sure they're angry.
Yeah,
you know,
furious.
their customers, their stores, all of that is in jeopardy. Where they bought into something they thought was going to be a big money
And
saver.
alarmingly for the Tesla organization, Walmart have very deep pockets. They are the biggest retailer,
retailer in
the States.
America.
It's
Yeah.
they're the ones Bernie Sanders always goes after for having too much cash.
Yeah.
We're going to spend some of that cash now going after Tesla. That's a worry.
So speaking of cash, the share price is at $220. That's up a whole dollar from $219 last week, but down from a midweek high of $228. Okay. Now, that's way down from funding secured this time last year. Now, when Elon made that tweet, the share price was $387. But remember, Tesla first sold stock in 2010, and the initial public offering, the share price was $17.
Oh,
right?
love to be on that.
So if you'd invested $1,000 in 2010, it would now be worth more than $11,500 US.
Not bad.
But the car business is still eating capital, and debt is ballooning. So we'll just see which way this share price trend continues to flow. There'd be one school of thought that says, sell right now because things aren't going to get better, or the real long, it's the most shorted stock on the US stock exchange right now.
Much to
but
Elon's...
there'd be others that would be saying, well, you just got to hang in there, it's a long play. And
James Cleary's advice is general and not to be taken as a social stock.
That's right. Please consult with your financial advisor.
So we'll keep an eye on that. But with that, we have reached the finish
Already?
line. Thank you, Chesto.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
And many thanks to Mr. Pritchard for his brilliant work. And it's nice to see him in a kilt today. The Pritchard clan tartan suits him well. And that is, of course, a very finely turned ankle.
I just wish it wasn't so breezy in here.
I know, that's right. Please pass on the word about the podcast and let us know your thoughts by searching for CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram using the hashtag CGPodcast, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. If you're an iTunes listener, please rate and review us. And remember, you can watch us on YouTube. Until next week, earlier this week, a mate of mine was walking past a Ferrari showroom when he was struck by an awe-inspiring 488 GTB. It broke both his legs.
Oh, God. Well, I don't know what to say.
Nothing is
I'm
appropriate.
finally speechless.
I saw that one coming.